you'd mentioned aesthetics as a fundamental motivation for action. Could you say more about what you mean there?
So the idea came from, for me, it came from John Finnis, his book, Natural Law and Natural Rights from 1980 or 81. And in the book, he says there are 7 basic human goods. Like I said, I don't really like the word good because I think it just gets too confusing, and especially in the context of philosophy. But so I prefer a basic reason for action, which is another term that he uses, and others in that kind of same thought. He actually claims, and I kind of like this, he claims that that these goods are self-evident, but they're generic enough, general enough where there's not just one way to pursue them. So knowledge is one, life, which includes health, friendship, play, which I thought was really exciting. That I think that's an underdeveloped one, and aesthetic experience. Well, aesthetic experience, he writes 6 sentences about it, and that's the only mention of aesthetic experience in this book. And so I sort of took the challenge to develop that into a bigger thing. But he says that it's self-evident. And what does that mean? Obviously, it doesn't mean that everyone's going to agree. Not everyone's going to exactly recognize the value, or at least not in the same way. I think he offers 2 ways of kind of illustrating why this is a fundamental thing. And one is it's sort of simple. Just observe what people do. People spend time, money, and energy to present themselves a certain way that oftentimes it makes them feel good. I mean, there are other things at work, of course, social pressures and different things. So I'm not trying to diminish those. Yeah. But we spend time, money, and energy to decorate our homes, our offices, all these things. We travel all around our countries and the world to see things made by humans and that are natural that we believe will give us some kind of aesthetic experience. There might be other reasons too, like history and other things as well, but surely aesthetic experience is one of the motivators. So that's one kind of way, is just observe what people do, and you'll see that they're motivated by this. And then the other thing is, imagine what it's like without aesthetic properties, without positive aesthetics in your life. And, we don't have to go far to imagine that. We have places all over this country that have these. They're called prisons. Former incarcerated person turned poet, Reginald Dwayne Betts, at a talk I saw once, said, "There's no beauty in prison." It had nothing to do with aesthetics. He just sort of offered this as a side comment. So anyway, we can imagine what that's like. I personally, before I had any of the vocabulary that I have and any of the knowledge of theories and ideas of aesthetics, I personally walked through the projects in a major U.S. city and realized if I lived here, I could feel the oppressiveness because of the complete lack of any aesthetic considerations. So for me, that's kind of what I mean by a basic reason for action. Is it's necessary for human flourishing. And this is where I've kind of I hadn't really given Maslow's hierarchy of needs much thought in, I don't know, a long time. And it recently came up, and I thought that's a huge problem that it's called a hierarchy. It sends the wrong message, I think. Yes, we can technically stay alive with food, water, and shelter, but what kind of a life is that without aesthetics and other meaningful work and play and relationships and things like that? I mean, it's not really much of a life. On a very technical level, yes, those things are slightly more important, but not really. I mean, not really for the kind of life we all would aspire toward.
Beauty at Work is brought to you by Templeton Religion Trust. If you enjoyed this clip, go check out the full episode. And please take a moment to subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps get the word out about the show. Thanks, and see you next time.